What is going on, people? LP 2000 right back at you with another Kaiju film discussion. Obviously, today I'm doing the cool classic film from the Godzilla Heisei film series. They actually kickstarted the Godzilla Heisei film series with the Return of Godzilla 1984 or Godzilla 1985. Let me give a huge shout out to three special people helping make this video possible. First of all, Brutazilla, thank you so much for your participation in this discussion. I had to have him up here because this is his favorite Godzilla film of all time, so of course I had to have his input in this discussion. Also, Steve Herron, thank you for the use of your picks during the course of this video. I really appreciate it. As well as John Ruffin, thank you for the use of your picks as well. Also, go to Steve Herron's Facebook page, Attack of the Miniature Monsters. I will have a link in the description of this video. Go to his Facebook page to see more of his great work involving our favorite kaiju figures, recreating scenes of our favorite kaiju movies, and do the same with John Ruffin's website, mykaiju.com. You see the same awesome work with our favorite figures, recreating scenes of our favorite kaiju movies. So thank you both for the use of your picks during the course of this video. And just a brief history, the last time we saw Godzilla in the Showa series, you know, he was fighting pollution monsters, aliens, mechanical doubles, but they decided to do a reset button and come back in the mid-80s with this awesome classic Godzilla film. Yes, which brings the monster back to his nuclear dark roots. It's a really enjoyable film. So sit back and relax. I hope you enjoy the commentary between Brutazilla and myself of the Return of Godzilla 1984 or Godzilla 1985. I thank you so much for listening and watching. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all again on the next figure and movie review. All right, enjoy the commentary.
Yeah! Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready? What? Yeah! Let's go! If you want it, you can get it. Let me know.
What is going on, people? LP 2000 right back at you with another Kaiju film discussion. And yes, today I'm doing a Kaiju film discussion with my brother from another mother, Butch Bollinger, but you know him better as Brutazilla. How you doing, Brutazilla?
Good, man. I'm excited for this one.
Oh, yes. I'm excited too because we are discussing today the first film in the Godzilla Heisei film series, The Return of Godzilla 1984, or as we better know it here in America, as Godzilla 1985. And I got Brutazilla here on this discussion because this is his favorite Godzilla film of all time, and it's his first Godzilla film that he ever saw. So he has a lot of nostalgia. It has a lot of historical significance for him. And so I thought, who better than to discuss this great film than probably the biggest Godzilla 1985 fan that I know, with the exception of Goji Fan 93. But Brutazilla loves this film to death, and I can't blame him for it. So, you know, let's just talk about, like, history, like, how we got to know this film. And you know what, let me just come out and say, I really do enjoy these discussions with you, Brutazilla. It's really been fun, just us, you know, talking about this stuff and bouncing off each other with our ideas and our commentary. This makes number 3. It makes number 3 because first we went with Godzilla vs. Gigan, 1972. Then we jumped to King Kong vs. Godzilla. And now we're here in the Heisei discussing your favorite Godzilla film. So with that being said, why don't you just tell the folks how your initial thoughts about this film. When was you first exposed to this film, and why do you love it so much?
Well, I guess from what my parents had told me, I was mostly exposed to this film at a really young age. Apparently because around the time I was born, I guess, I was still a baby, and they told me that that they went to go see it in American theaters here when they played it in Godzilla 1985, because my mom's a big Godzilla fan, and she wanted to see it, and when they went to go see it in the theater here in America, they took me. I guess I don't know why they didn't have a babysitter or nothing, but apparently they were trying to watch it. You know what I mean, though? Like, because of course, you know, Godzilla roar, I guess I cried, so
Yeah.
My mom wanted to watch the film, so she made Dad take me out so she could watch it.
Right.
So favorite movie. It's my favorite movie because I was exposed to it at such a very young age.
Right.
Because, you know, my oldest memory that I remember of seeing the movie is pretty much watching it from a Blockbuster video. Because I rented the video and then we re-recorded it onto a blank VHS tape at the time. And among my VHS tapes that I watched Godzilla movies countlessly, it was always Godzilla 1985 on the tape, and then right after that, King Kong vs. Godzilla. But as soon as it ended, just King Kong vs. Godzilla would play, and then whatever else, you know, kid stuff related. But it was always Godzilla 1985 first, and then I always had to watch King Kong vs. Godzilla afterwards. That's my oldest memory of me watching it constantly. But you know, like I said, now that they told me the story, you know, when I got older and stuff, it's like, wow, that's weird how that's my favorite movie, you know, because of that story that they told me when I was a baby.
Right.
But I just love the movie to death. It's just a cool movie. I just love the whole story. The Godzilla's I just love the suit design. That's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, and I can tell you're really excited. And you know what? It's customary. Like if you were, because everybody knows my favorite Godzilla film is Mothra vs. Godzilla, and if you were to ask me what I love so much about it, I couldn't really convey in the words because I love that film so much. So I can understand where you're coming from. But my exposure to this film was this is one of the earliest Godzilla films I ever saw, because everybody knows my first Godzilla film I saw was Godzilla vs. Megalon, and that instantly got me hooked. And I've said this countless times in other videos and outlets or whatever, that I'm from a small town in North Carolina, and our Godzilla films, at least my access to Godzilla films, was very, very limited. I only had a handful to choose from that I could watch or I had access to. Godzilla 1954, Son of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, Mothra vs. Godzilla, well, back then it was called Godzilla vs. Mothra. And Godzilla 1985 was one of those films, and it's one of those films that, like you, it was on VHS tapes long before DVDs and Blu-rays and Laserdisc and all that stuff. There were actually VCRs, and that tape got so used because I watched that film over and over and over and over again. And ironically, I watched this film around the same time as I watched the original Godzilla 1954, or Godzilla King of the Monsters. And I'm watching this 1985 film, and even though I was loving it, you know, I was loving it, but I appreciate it more now as a film. You know, as I've gotten older, certain things about these Godzilla films, some things I appreciated back then, I don't really appreciate now, and vice versa. Things I don't appreciate back then, I appreciate more now. And Godzilla 1985 is one of those films that I appreciated more as I watch it. And I was a little confused back then when I was watching this film, because, of course, we know that this film is a direct sequel to Godzilla 1954. So I'm watching Godzilla 1985, and there's no mention of King Ghidorah. There's no mention of him flying in Hedra. There's no mention of him having a son. There was no mention of him fighting a giant ape. There was no mention of a Mecha Godzilla. So I'm watching this, I'm like, wait a minute, like, why is there no mention of it? You know, and it wasn't till I got older and knowing a little bit more research about the film, the fact that this film basically ignores every other film in the Showa Godzilla film series with the exception of 1954. So with that being said, I was like, I mean, back then, once I learned that information, and now I know more about why they did it. Back in the 80s, because, you know, between Terra Mechagodzilla and Godzilla 1985, they tried to get some scripts off the ground to bring Godzilla back, but they couldn't do it. And they felt the best way to have Godzilla come back is to basically ignore everything that happened, try to distance the character away from the goofy superhero persona that he had in his last few films, and come back with a more darker, serious, grounded, really themed with the nuclear weapons or anti-nuclear weapons theory, and just present a very dark and serious Godzilla. with this film, and I really do appreciate it. You know, I really appreciate, like I said, I appreciate it more as I watch it. You know, even though back then I was so accustomed to watching Godzilla fight aliens or Godzilla fight other monsters that when I watched this film back then, I didn't really appreciate it as I should have. But now, as I'm older and I'm a little bit wiser, and I'm starting to learn more about these films and why they exist or whatever. This film to me proves that Godzilla does not need to be fighting monsters or aliens to be an entertaining Godzilla film. So that's my exposure, my first exposure to Godzilla 1985. As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, if we flip-flop between talking about the original and the American version, because of course the original was The Return of Godzilla 1984, the Americanized version was Godzilla 1985. Personally, I can't speak for Brutazilla, but I can speak for myself. I prefer 1985 between the two, and I'll talk about that later on when I talk about my likes, my dislikes. So, Brutazilla, before we go into our dislikes, because I want to talk about the negativity first. Is there anything you want to add before we go into the negativity?
For dislikes now, are you talking about like the American version or the Japanese version?
No, I'm just saying. Are we doing both? No, I'm just saying like overall thoughts about the movie before we move into the negativity.
Oh, okay. Overall thoughts. Perfect.
All right.
I mean, it's the perfect movie.
Right. You know what? And there's nothing wrong with that. So, I normally how this format works, sometimes we flip-flop, whatever, but normally, at least a good majority of the discussions, we often go into the positivity before we go into the negativity. But let's go into the negativity first, because for me, the negativity is at a minimal for me. So, do you want to go with your what you don't like about the film, or you rather that I do it first?
It don't matter. Whichever one you like. Whichever you like to do first.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Since this is your favorite Godzilla film, let me just tell you what I don't like, and then we go from there. And what I don't like about this film is like I said, it's at a minimum for me. And I'm gonna flip flop between the American version and the Japanese version. What I don't like about the Japanese version is the fact that I enjoyed the American version better because it was paced better. You know, because I mean, even though they tell somewhat of the same story, there really are different films between the two. To me, the Japanese version kind of drags in a way, and there are periods of Godzilla of him just standing there. I know I've talked about that a lot over the course of other videos, but there just are periods of Godzilla just standing there, either waiting for the Super X to attack him or just standing there, just looking off. You know what I mean? And to me, I think the American version really did a better job with pacing the film, as well as like adding sound effects and adding more roars, because you know I love sound and I love Godzilla's roar in this film. Also, what I don't like about the film, at least from the American standpoint, is I love the inclusion of Raymond Burr, who was Steve Martin, which was basically you know, him reprising his role from Godzilla King of the Monsters. I like his inclusion. I like his inclusion of the film, and I've seen a lot of folks say that, you know, that he doesn't really add anything to the plot, or he doesn't really come up with any real plans to stop Godzilla. To me, and for me, he wasn't there to do that. He was just there to let the Americans know what they were dealing with, since he was the only American back then to witness Godzilla's destruction firsthand. And the only thing I don't like about his inclusion is the fact that that little statue talisman that he had, it wasn't really explained what that meant. Maybe you know, because I know this is your favorite Godzilla film. Maybe you know what that meant or anything like that. But for me, they didn't really explain about what that meant or how that plays into the story or whatever. And also the comedy in Godzilla 1985, I mean, it's corny. It's corny now. I mean, I could have done without that. But for me, but for me, it doesn't really drag the film down. As a matter of fact, for me doing some research about this film, I found out two key things that I thought was very interesting. One, the guy who played Dr. Serizawa in the original 1954 film, you know, I think his name is Akito Hirata, who went on to play other great movie roles in these Godzilla films. He was Dr. Mifune in Terror Mechagodzilla. He was Dr. Miyajima in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 1974. He was the Red Bamboo lieutenant in Godzilla vs. Sea Monster. You know, he played all these great roles in the original Godzilla films. Well, he was slated to play Dr. Hayashida in Godzilla 1985, but he unfortunately succumbed to throat cancer, I believe, or some kind of cancer, and he died before. Yeah, he died before production was to commence, and they ended up giving that role to the guy who plays Shindo in Ghidra Three-Headed Monster. So it's unfortunate that Mr. Harada wasn't able to play, play Hayashida. I think that would have been a great way to tie in, with the old from the new. Because even though Godzilla 1985, 1985 does a great job of establishing itself as a hardcore sequel to Godzilla 1954, and like I said, I could have done without the comedy and whatever, and that's pretty much it as far as like my dislikes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's one thing I found out about the film that makes me appreciate Raymond Burr even more. Originally, when they brought this film to the United States to be Americanized, they really wanted to make a spoof out of it. They wanted to make a parody of it. But Raymond Burr went to bat for Godzilla and went to bat for this film. And he said he would not take part in this film or do anything with this film, acting or whatever, if they didn't treat this as a serious movie or a serious story as they did in 1954. And I have to respect him for that. You know what I mean? Because the fact
that's good.
Yeah, that's real good. So the fact that he went to bat for Godzilla and went to bat for this film, and the fact that, because, back then, a guy in a rubber dinosaur suit, Godzilla, even though he's cool to us Godzilla fans, a lot of fans out there, a lot of mainstream casual viewers look at Godzilla as a joke. And, of course, the people who wanted to make Godzilla 1985 a parody or a joke, that's their opinion, but Raymond Burr was like, nope, we ain't doing that. So you want me to be a part of it? You treat it seriously. So I give Raymond Burr so much credit, and I give him so much respect for that. So, with that being said, that's it with my negativity about the film. Like I said, it's very minimal. So let's go with your negative thoughts. What do you not like about Godzilla 1985?
Okay. When it comes to dislikes, I will say I agree with you with the 1984, with the basically I like the 85 movie a lot better. Like you said, the 84 in the movie, he was just kind of standing there, and it was like he just mostly stood there, like weird little shots. They would like show him just standing, not doing nothing. Where the American version, they kind of, like you said, they paced it better, and they actually showed him like in action every single time, even though I noticed some of the scenes they actually reused again. Like, in a way, they kind of used their own little stock footage in a way.
Yeah.
Like, to make it look like he was doing something else, But I noticed the same movement some of the time. Like, he did the same movements like maybe a couple times, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's just them using stock footage, I guess, to make it look like he's doing something, but...
Yeah.
But... yeah, I don't like how they did that, and I also don't like, even though I love the American version to death, I don't like how they kind of took a little bit too much out. Like, for example, one scene I remember was, a couple scenes I remember from the Japanese version was, like when they did a close-up of Godzilla after he emerged and went to go absorb the reactor, they show like a close-up shot of him, and he snarled, and then they show him walking towards the reactor again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the Japanese version, but the American version cut it out, and I don't know why. I guess maybe they thought that 2 seconds of him snarling was too much or something. I don't know, but
yeah,
they took that out, and then they took out the cool part where he was walking by that building, and you could see his reflection, the glass mirrors or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the glass windows, I mean.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. So I guess little nitpicks here or there, and I guess, and they changed a little bit of stuff too, like when they were doing that bird call thing that tested it out or whatever. In the American version, they did the bird call, and Godzilla turns around, looks at the building, looks at the people, and he gets mad and he goes towards it, like he's gonna, walk towards it and destroy the building. But in the Japanese version, he just kind of turns around and just stands there and looks like, what? And that was it.
Yeah.
So I kind of like how the American version did it better, in that sense. Like, well, yeah, he's going towards the bird call. He's gonna come at you, I guess, instead of just standing there like, what,
Yep.
But, and also, there was way too much, they had too much talking in the Japanese version as well. That's what I also didn't like about it. And that goes with the pacing thing, too. There was too much, it was, I don't know, it was just too much talking, and the American version just tasted better, and, I don't know. I'm trying to think of dislikes. There's so many things I like about the movie. There's not too many dislikes. I guess a minor one would be, even though at the end I love Dr. Raymond, I love Raymond Burr's speech at the end. But I wish they would have kept that song from the Japanese version in at the end. That's one of my favorite Godzilla songs, the Godzilla theme or whatever, the love song theme or whatever it is. I thought that was kind of cool. But at least when you watch the Japanese version, you can see it, and then you see the volcano exploding in the background. That's kind of cool,
Yeah.
But they took that out of the American version and just kind of like, have got, the music from the soundtrack and then just have the credits roll.
Yeah, I think they felt that Raymond Burr's speech was enough to end the film, and like I said, because of the film, Raymond Burr going to bat for the fact that he wanted it to be kept serious. Maybe it's their decision not to include that song, because even though the song is really cool, in a way, this is my opinion. Considering this was a new darker take of Godzilla. To me, that song kind of sounds out of place. You mean?
Yeah, that is true. Now that I think about it,
it does sound out of place. Even though I like the song and it's a catchy tune, but for this version of Godzilla, it was kind of it just the song was just wasn't it just didn't fit this version of Godzilla. So maybe that's the reason why they didn't do it. But like
that's true. They're trying to kill him, and then all of a sudden, goodbye now, Godzilla, my friend.
Because really, the premise of these Heisei films, at least these new versions of Godzilla, the Godzilla was not the hero. You were not supposed to root for him. You were not supposed to be on his side. He's the antagonist. He's a villain. But then again, to me, villain is a strong word to describe this Godzilla. And I'll talk about that when I talk about my likes. And as a matter of fact, you want to go into that now? Cause I think we're done with our negativity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm done with it. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, me either, because I love this film so much. Even though it's not in my top 10 of favorite Godzilla films, I enjoy this movie to death, and it has so much huge nostalgia for me, as I mentioned before. And I'll keep my, there's so much love about this Godzilla film for me. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Leslie. I forgot. There's one other thing I want to say negative that I didn't like about the 84, I guess. Most of my negatives come from 84, but there's a couple from American. I forgot one thing. I don't like how in the Japanese version, when Godzilla gets attacked by the Super X, and the sound effects he makes are different compared to the American version for some reason.
Yeah.
And especially the ending when he falls in the volcano, the sound effects, his roars, they don't sound as heartbreaking as they do in the American version. Where the Japanese version, to me, it seems out of place. Maybe because I've seen the American version first, where I grew up with it, but it just seems out of place, and it's not like I'm thinking, American version, he feels real sad because his scream going down the volcano. The Japanese version, it just seems weird, out of place, and it's like, what was that,
Yeah.
But I forgot, that's another big dislike I forgot to say I didn't like about that.
Okay. I definitely understand that.
That's it now.
I definitely understand that. No, it's all good. It's all good. But for me, I love this film. For one, I love the poster. I love that poster. That is by far my favorite poster of the Heisei series. Even though it doesn't feature the actual suit, and that's another thing. Even though they had a 20-foot Cybot Godzilla that was, spliced in shots with the suit, I really enjoyed that Godzilla. I love that Cybot Godzilla. You know what I mean? And
Me too.
it took me a while to really figure out that the poster Godzilla and the suit was not the same Godzilla. But at that point, I didn't care because I was just that Cybot Godzilla just looked so cool to me. So the poster, for one, I love so much. And it's another little weird thing. I love the American version poster than the Japanese because the Japanese poster looks a little bit darker, but they kind of lighten it up in '85, and then they have a little tagline at the bottom: "The legend is reborn." I love that poster. I love Godzilla in this film. Of course, I love his roar. I love his look. The fact that he's a scary looking Godzilla. We haven't seen really a scary looking Godzilla, if you want to call him scary, in my opinion, since the 1964 version. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased, but if you look at 64 and look at 84, there are really scary looking Godzillas, and I love the 84's look. I love the story. I love the story involving this Godzilla and his personification, because I've said this before, that to me this Godzilla is not the same one from 54. And there's another thing that Raymond Burr, maybe you can shed some light on this, but in the American version, which kind of makes me think that maybe this Godzilla is like the same one from 54. He did say that back in the 50s that they never found a corpse. So that kind of like opens some discussion, like, is this the same Godzilla from the 54? Is it a new one? Or whatever? Or they just put it in there just for storyline purposes? What'd you think about that before I go any further?
I think they did that just for storyline purposes because maybe they didn't know that Japan was going to make Godzilla Spinal Anti because it wasn't, until several years later, you know what I mean?
That's true.
So maybe they thought maybe after this movie, he dies and, maybe they were going to have him die in the volcano. Maybe they didn't have no plans to resurrect him since it took so many years, to actually have released Godzilla Spinal Anti. So maybe at the time it was just for story purposes, because that's all I could think of, just for story purposes. But then again, when you think about it, in the original Godzilla movie, anyway, when he turns into a skeleton, the skeleton disappears. So
yeah,
maybe that's why they couldn't find the corpse either, because it just disappeared out of thin air. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But that one statement kind of, opens some discussions, like, if this really is a new Godzilla, or is just the 54 just mutated into a more, I guess, ferocious form in the 84. But far as going more into my likes, like I said, I love the story. I love the music. The music is so epic. It proves that Akira Ifukube didn't have to be on every single Godzilla film for it to be an epic soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. I love the personification of Godzilla, like I said, and the fact that he's different from 54. And I said this before, to me, he seems like he's like a lost, wandering animal. He's just trying to figure the world out. He's not this evil, destructive demon like he was in 54 or in GMK. And if you think about it, all the stuff that happens to him, or when he decides to wreck stuff or smash stuff, it comes at a point where something is done to him first. Like in the scene where he destroys the sub. If you think about it and remember the scene, the Soviet spot Godzilla in the sea, they don't really know what it is. They fire 2 torpedoes at him. So then in return, he destroys the sub. Then when we see him again, when he rises up out of Tokyo Bay, and after he attacks the power plant, whatever, he shows up in Tokyo Bay. He rises up. He doesn't really do anything. He just roars at the helicopter that was trying to look for him. Then the air squadron comes in, the planes come in, they start shooting at him, and that's when he retaliates. So it's only when only when he gets hurt, or when they do something to him, when Godzilla goes crazy and just destroys everything. And the biggest difference between the 54 Godzilla and this version of Godzilla is the original 54, he picks up a train in his mouth, crushes it, and then throws it down to the ground with such ferocity and just very malicious. And this one, he picks up a train again, but he's looking inside because he's curious. He doesn't see anything that's of interest to him. He just tosses it away. It's not like he was mad and just smashes the ground as it did in 54. So for those reasons, I love this version of Godzilla, that he's not really a villain, if you really think about it. Even though he's the antagonist of the story, the word villain is a strong word to describe this Godzilla. And of course, when he falls into a volcano, I love how they filmed that, where they didn't really definitively or at least in a definitive way, kill Godzilla. It's not like they, recycled like a manner of death as they did in 54, where he dissolves away or whatever. And at least in this one, at least it leaves you open to bring him back, which I'm glad that they did. Because I can tell you, after I watched that, especially watching the American version, hear him scream, I thought he was dead. I must have asked my mom a million times, because she watched it a couple times with me. I must have asked her a million times, like, Mom, is he dead? Is he coming back? Blah, blah, blah. Because mind you, we didn't know about Godzilla. We didn't know about Godzilla's Biollante until like many years later. So I thought after that he was dead. So when I finally found Godzilla's Biollante, I was like, oh, yes, he came back. He wasn't dead. So, yeah, so that was a huge moment for me. But that's pretty much all I have to say as far as my likes about the movie. The floor is yours, my friend.
Oh boy, so many likes. Besides the movie itself being my perfect movie, I love the suit. The design is just so terrifying looking to me, even though he's not, like you said, not really a villain. He's just a wandering creature trying to find his way home, wondering where he is, what the hell is this city and stuff doing here. And I love how they brought Raymond Burr back into it, since it's a direct sequel to the original black and white one. And, give it that serious tone, like that nostalgia tone, like, oh, he knows what's going on, even though, like you said, he didn't really do much. He's just the only one who knew, like, telling everybody, well, you guys, you're dealing with, a force of nature, it's like a hurricane, So, and I also love the soundtrack of this film. This is probably my favorite when it comes to Godzilla soundtracks. I love all the music in it, even though the Godzilla theme song is one of my favorites. It's not used in this movie, but I still love the soundtrack for this movie. I love the story, and I love all the scenes. And my favorite scene is probably when Godzilla first comes, the ground cracks, and the soldier looks up. I think it was a soldier or police officer, I forgot, but he looks up and
I think he was a security guard or something.
Security officer, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And he looks up, and then he's all like, just shows Godzilla, and he roars and stuff. I just love how Godzilla roars too. Like, I love the roar, the roar, used the 84 roar. And then I love how he tilts his head back a lot and just shows his fangs and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that was the Cybot every time they did that, when he just tilted his head back and showed his Dracula-like fangs and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But, and I love I think one of my favorite scenes besides him fighting the Super X, is like when he's fighting the jets in the water. And I love how they're shooting all these missiles at him, and they're missing him, and all the water's like just splashing around Godzilla. Just kind of cool the way the effects look and stuff. Yeah. And then I love how Godzilla finally gets him and just blasts them all with his radioactive breath, kills everybody, and sets the people on fire and stuff. Then he just roars again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just love everything. I'm mostly talking about the American version. Like I said, there's not too many things I like about the Japanese version besides like a couple scenes that were taken out and the song at the end, even though it does seem out of place out of the American version. And I know you said you didn't like the little bit of comedy that they had in the American version. I actually kind of liked the little bit of comedy. I mean, it doesn't really draw away from the movie to me.
Yeah.
Maybe because I like the movie so much, but I kind of like the little comedy, especially that soldier who was kind of like a smartass or whatever. Like, oh, look at the big screen, General. Wonder Lizard is down for the count. I'm like, I always thought that was kind of funny when I was younger, And then like when he had that scan, or I'm not sure if it was an X-ray or scan of Godzilla, heat scan or something of Godzilla, and he's over there saying like, here's a little devil, blah blah blah, and all this stuff, and then like the guy turns it up. He has it upside down. He turns it over, and the guy's like, shaking his head, just walks away.
Right.
And I don't know. I kind of liked it. I thought, it was kind of funny, except for like the part where he's like saying like, oh, that's a kind of urban renewal program they got going down there, because Godzilla's destroying Japan, and I didn't think that was kind of cool, but whatever, you know. I kind of thought it was funny. Like, I mean, you didn't think about it when you were young, but now that you think about it now, it's kind of funny how they had the Dr. Pepper spots in there, you know, to sponsor, because Dr. Pepper sponsored them or something, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the main reasons why I love Dr. Pepper so much, because that's my favorite soft drink. You know.
It's funny because I never liked Dr. Pepper. I only started drinking Dr. Pepper like maybe a couple years ago too, and I started liking it then.
Okay, yeah, Dr. Pepper.
Just another side story, yeah.
Dr. Pepper has been my favorite drink since I was like young, and I haven't stopped since. So maybe the film has something to do with it. You never know. If it does, hey, I love the film even more now.
And also, I like how in American, I think I kind of said this already in my dislikes, how I like the sound effects better in this movie with Godzilla getting attacked by the Super X when he shot the canyon missiles in his mouth, and he had the old Showa Godzilla roars when he's like, he's got his heart beating.
Absolutely.
And then he, you know, passes out.
Yeah.
And then, especially the ending. The ending is just the best, like, when it comes to just heartbreaking. I mean, I never cried, though. That's the only thing. This was the Godzilla movie that I did not cry over. It was Son of Godzilla, when they were hibernating, when Mania is walking towards Godzilla, and Godzilla picks them up, and they just sleep there. I thought they died.
Right.
But that was the only Godzilla movie ever that I've seen that I cried. And maybe if I saw Godzilla Destroyer when I was a kid, I probably would have been bawling because he actually died in that. But surprisingly, I didn't cry, you know, in this one. You know, I still found it sad when I was young, but I just never cried. But it was still heartbreaking. I love how, you know, I don't know how they did it or, you know, why they did it compared to the Japanese version, but, you know, the shriek that he makes when he's going to the volcano, it just, you know, just makes you feel for Godzilla, you know, after all he's been through, you know.
Absolutely.
And then of course the music gets to you too, you know, the music, and they're all just looking, you know, like they're kind of looking on sad, like, what have we done, you know, but I guess the only way they could do to deal with them.
Absolutely.
I don't mind the people either. The people I like the actors and actresses in there. I like the bum. I thought he was kind of funny, acting like he was all tough with Godzilla when Godzilla would, like, when he has little interactions with Godzilla, like when Godzilla roared at him, and he's sort of like, don't act like don't act like a big town head, you just got the town or whatever. Want to hang out with me, learn some manners or something, acting like he's all tough.
Yeah.
That was kind of in the Japanese version too, but I kind of like that little bit humor too.
Yeah.
Trying to think of anything else I like key moments besides like the Super X fight. I love that fight. No, I think that about covers everything. Almost, yeah, covers all the likes I like about it.
All right. And we'll just move into our final thoughts about the film. And before I go into the final thoughts, there's one thing I forgot to mention that I love. As a matter of fact, I love about both stories, both films, that I didn't cover. It's the fact that they really treat this situation as a real serious situation. And of course in these films, you know, sometimes you get the impression that, you know, they're just acting, they're just going through the motions. But at least in both of these stories, you really feel for the people that, you know, they recognize what happened in 1954. And one line that I love so much in 1985 was after, you know, Makigoro finds, what's his name? Kenny on the ship, and the helicopter comes in to rescue them. And then the next scene is they show the Prime Minister looking out the window, and his line was, Godzilla. I was hoping I would never hear that name again. That line right there, and just the way they handled the situation where they wanted to keep Godzilla's return a secret to not cause a mass panic, and then when they have to let the world know that Godzilla is back, and the other superpowers of the world come together and they try to motivate the Japanese to use nuclear weapons. And this was something that wasn't in the American version, but I really love in the Japanese version, where the Prime Minister basically explained that he set all the world leaders that came to Japan to discuss the crisis, and basically persuaded them to let them know, like, hey, we're not going to use nuclear weapons. And the Prime Minister's advisor was like, how did you do it? And basically he said, I just told them, like, what if Godzilla appeared in your country? Would you be willing to drop a nuclear bomb knowing that it would destroy most of your citizens? And after that,
they were all quiet.
Yeah, they're all quiet. So the storytelling in both stories is really, really good. I just think, like I said, in 85, the pacing is better. But the way they handled the situation of the Godzilla coming back, the threat of this creature now reborn coming back to basically do the exact same thing he did before, if not worse. The fact they treat it as a real life situation, a real life crisis, is one of the main things I love about this film. So with final thoughts, before we go to, and you know what, I'm going to incorporate this into my final thoughts and your recommendation to a Kaiju newbie or whatever. And we had this discussion on Facebook a couple of days ago. And you can answer this, you know, because you're biased towards the film or not biased. But let's talk about, where do you rank this as far as like Godzilla reboots? And the reboots in question are Godzilla 1985, you know, as relates to 1954. The reboots are Godzilla 1985, Godzilla 2000, Godzilla 2014, and Shin Godzilla. And I know you've seen all four of those films. I'm not going to count Megaguirus and GMK and all those other films, because I know they're reboots. But to me, since they make up the majority of the Millennium series, to me, I'm talking about movies that like started off like new series or whatever. So that's why
those are true reboots.
Right. So that's why I'm just talking about Godzilla 1985. Excuse me, Godzilla 1985, Godzilla 2000, Godzilla 2014, or Shin Godzilla. Where do you rank them as far as like enjoying, or how would you recommend them as far as like reboots to a Kaiju newbie?
Okay, as far as ranking goes, I would obviously say 85 is number one. Number two, I would have to say Legendary Godzilla, because I really enjoyed seeing that. I really enjoyed that movie a lot. And because I don't know, as far as like saying that one, like for a fan, like for a new Godzilla fan, I guess it'd be good, you know, but it's not like, because sometimes maybe that movie would make people want to see the old movies, the old Japanese movies, you know.
Right.
Seeing Legendary Godzilla, maybe, I'm not sure, because that's what I've known. The American Godzilla 1998 did that for some people, but
yeah.
But
we ain't
I would
talking
say
about
that one would be two.
Yeah, we ain't talking about that pothole. So, you know.
I know. That's why I said it did it for some people, but
right.
And I would say number three would have to be Godzilla 2000. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I'm not sure if that the way the American one was, because I'm not sure if it was like a good way to get people into Godzilla movies, because when I was there in the theater, a couple things happened. Like when Godzilla was trying to crush the people in the car, and they were driving away, and then Godzilla roars, the girl screams, and then he stomps and misses. There were like a couple kids in the audience, and I heard them, and one of them, I think they were like saying, "That was stupid." And I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was too cheesy for them or something. I'm not sure, but they just said out loud, "That was stupid." I'm just sitting there, okay.
Yeah.
And the ending, basically when it ended, I guess they removed them from the American DVD and Blu-ray, but I guess they kept it in the theatrical versions. After Godzilla does his little music walk, destruction at the end, and the girl's like, "Why does he keep protecting us?" And he goes, "Maybe because Godzilla's inside each one of us," or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly if it was right after that he said that, or if it was when those words came up. The words that I'm talking about that they took out of the DVD and the Blu-ray, the end, or is it, or something like that. I think they took those out or something. But basically, somewhere around there, after that he said that, a woman in the theater just got up out of her seat and just died laughing to the whole world. I was like, okay, you know,
right.
like I guess she thought it was really funny, and I guess like maybe, you know, it was stupid, I guess. So the way the Godzillas inside each one of us or something.
Yeah.
So I would have to say that would be 3 when it comes to reboots. I mean, maybe that's just because they weren't Godzilla fans, and I guess that movie didn't really help them to begin with. But I would say that's 3, and for Shin Godzilla, obviously 4. That's definitely not one of my favorites, for my own reasons. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But
and you know what? I feel the same way, except I'm gonna do a switcheroo on one. For me, far as like enjoyment and how I recommend these reboots, of course, Godzilla 1985 would be number 1. Number 2 would be Godzilla 2000, because I do enjoy that film. I think it's really fun, despite all the cheesiness and the stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a good. I like it. But I was just saying, like, because other people, what they might think. Like I told you, the experiences I've seen.
Right. And then Godzilla 2014, and then Shin Godzilla. And I enjoy all of those films, but for me, the one that is the top of the pack, the one I have such huge nostalgia for, that I would highly recommend to anybody, is of course Godzilla 1985. It's very similar. It's somewhat similar to the 1954 film, but it's done in a modern day setting, and Godzilla's personification is different or whatever. That it offers a different spin. Because I know a lot of folks like to say that Godzilla 1985 is just like Godzilla 1954, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So.
Yep.
But yes, I would highly recommend this film to a Kaiju newbie, and that's pretty much all I have to say about Godzilla 1985. I love the film. Have you got any more final thoughts?
Not really. Perfect film for me. I know your perfect film would be Godzilla vs. Mothra, Mothra vs. Godzilla. But this to me is my perfect Godzilla film, and so far nothing that came out has surpassed it yet.
And you know what? I can't fault you for that, because this really is a great film. My only gripe with is the fact that it came out on Blu-ray last year. Finally, after being in legal limbo for so long, the rights to the film. Unfortunately, Godzilla 1985 was not part of the package. So hopefully,
yes, that was very disappointing.
Very disappointing. So hopefully, somebody will recognize that the demand is there for Godzilla 1985, and hopefully they'll get that out to us. But until then, this pretty much concludes our Kaiju discussion dedicated to Brutazilla's favorite film of all time, his first ever Godzilla film of all time, and one of my favorite films, huge nostalgia for me as well, The Return of Godzilla 1984, or of course Godzilla 1985. If you have any questions or comments, please comment down in the comment section, and please go to Brutazilla's YouTube channel. I don't have to tell you, he's one of the best Godzilla YouTubers out there, with informative reviews, commentaries. He's just a great guy. He's been doing this for a long time. I love him to death, and please go to his channel, subscribe, and of course, if you're going to G-Fest this year in Chicago, he will be at G-Fest there. So just holler at him. He's really a good guy, and I can't thank you enough for being a part of this discussion. So thank you so much, Brutazilla. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, especially for this awesome movie. I love doing these discussions with you. They're a lot of fun, and especially since this is my all-time favorite movie. It's real fun doing this with you, man.
Thank you so much. And I thank y'all for listening. And I really do appreciate it all. And I will see y'all again on the next Figure and Move review. All right? Y'all take it easy. Thanks, Butch.